All right, we are back for another episode of What's the Big Idea? And if you were here Sunday, I hope that you were, you'll know that we didn't recycle a big idea. We continued on.
Yeah, recycle. Recycle seems like a strong word.
Yeah. We continued on.
Seems like we cheated.
It does. And we didn't. We didn't cheat. We're men of integrity.
We reviewed the big idea.
And so we do want to just remind us what was our big idea from 2 weeks ago that we carried into this past Sunday as well.
Yes. When God's people are devoted to the church, God's power is displayed in the church.
And you made a lot of people nervous probably when you started talking about college classes, if they had to take any science classes and some flashbacks for some people in the room maybe.
Yeah. I intentionally kept that short. I was trying to be brief.
But just
Did you dissect anything in college?
I did, not in college.
High school?
High school.
I did both.
We did a frog. I feel like I did a shark at some point in time. I feel like we ended up cutting into a shark's stomach and could see what it had eaten.
Yeah.
And I took a biology class in college, but I don't remember dissecting anything.
We did, in high school, we did an owl pellet.
Yeah. They do. I think some classes do that here.
We did an earthworm and a frog. I think that was our high school experience.
Frog must be just the go-to. I mean, somebody is supplying
college
schools with frogs like crazy.
We did a fetal pig in college. Some people had to do cats. I'm glad I didn't have to do a cat. Yeah, fetal pig wasn't too bad.
Ada had to dissect some stuff. I can remember her talking about it in her classes. But yeah, for whatever reason, I don't remember doing it in college. I don't know.
So I'll give you a little random. Well, let's tie this in and make it biblical, right? I mean, because this is a church podcast. That word dissect.
Mm-hmm.
Psalm 139. It says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart.
Yeah.
Try me and know my thoughts."
Mm-hmm.
That word there means to examine, like in a dissection.
Okay.
So, like you're saying, Lord, like open me up and look at what's inside.
Look at that. What's the Strong's number for that?
Yeah, I don't know. H something.
H something.
Yeah, that's a Hebrew. That's a Hebrew one.
Hebrew word. That's right. And so, but this past Sunday, we'd been talking about it really kind of for a couple of weeks and kind of leading up to just making sure that everybody understood. It'll look and feel a little bit different.
Yeah.
But it was the lab, the application, the putting into practice of the things that we had talked about the week before. And so I know that you had anticipated this past Sunday for a while, really kind of thinking through it and wanting to, of course, be faithful to the scripture and faithful to, as you always do, but looking to do it a little bit differently. So kind of just from your viewpoint, I know sometimes we have this way we want something to go, and then it happens, and we can kind of start looking back. And from your standpoint, kind of how did Sunday go? And do you feel like it really accomplished what you hoped it would accomplish? May sound like it's you driving the boat. Well, we realize that it's not true, but you know what I'm asking.
Yeah.
You got
I think
it.
so.
You know where I'm at.
No, I want to backtrack even more to when I was kind of putting the series together. And again, kind of here's a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, but pun intended.
Yeah.
Right? But whenever I sit down and to start a new series, I try to at least map out usually about 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where I feel like the timing is going to be. What are those big Sundays that are coming up? Make sure that, if we have a big emphasis or a holiday or something, I'm trying to be especially paying attention to those Sundays. Make sure that, sometimes you can kind of time it that way. And so as I was originally laying out this series, I didn't initially, I just planned, hey, all right, preaching that day, then boom, we're into chapter 3.
Right.
But as I began to look ahead a couple of months ago and just kind of, all right, here's what's coming, and reading ahead some, I really had this, I don't know, again, I don't want to overuse the word conviction, because I think sometimes we can over-spiritualize things, but I had what I would say is just a strong inclination. You know what? We need to spend more than just 1 week there. And the other aspect of it was trying to plan out the Lord's Supper. You know, we try to do that, at least once a quarter. And so I knew it was right around that time. And so, all right, what's the best text to apply that to? Well, obviously it's this.
Right.
But the driving factor for me was, if I try to cram in teaching and doing the Lord's Supper, we're not going to do either one of them justice. And so that was kind of how the idea came. All right, let's take 1 week to teach the passage, and then the next week we're going to do the Lord's Supper. And that there's an opportunity then to try to apply some other things. So the original idea was we were going to try to do a fellowship right after church.
Right.
We were going to do, word and prayer, Lord's Supper and fellowship, all shebang right there in the morning. That quickly kind of became, it's probably too much in one go, the way we were going to do it anyway.
Right.
So we did our Sunday night fellowship, which I would lump in, right? As we're talking about Sunday, I'd say throw in our Sunday night fellowship.
Yes.
So kind of back to your question, what were my expectations? And I guess, that I feel like we accomplished them. I very much enjoyed Sunday.
Yes.
I think our church did. I heard several people that came up to me after church or that night, hey, really enjoyed this morning or enjoyed their prayer time or whatever. I think it made some people think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the purpose, right? And when we do things differently, we don't just do them to do it differently,
right.
But this was a really good opportunity for us to not just fall into the rhythm of what we always do, but to say, why is it that we're doing these things? I think we accomplished that. As much as I love to preach, I enjoyed being able to focus some more time Sunday morning on each of those elements. The prayer time, I think was the one that I was maybe the most uncertain of how that was going to go. Lord's Supper, I mean, we kind of do that the way we've always done it, but the prayer time was different. Just thinking through our context and our space,
right.
A full room, pews, not a lot of room to spread out. How's that going to work? But you just get to the point where you just say, whatever, like we're going to do this and it's going to happen how it happens. And I thought it went well, all things considered, honestly. I love when we do like group prayer and you just have a moment just to listen and you just hear like all these prayers going on in a room.
Yeah.
And it's always amazing to me when that happens and that like God hears every one of them at the same time. And I don't know, just a really cool moment.
Yeah. We, I don't know if you noticed, had an issue I had to deal with. So I ended up stepping out of the second service. You probably stared at me as I walked right out.
Obviously you're not devoted.
Exactly. I was like, you know what? I was here for the first service. So I ended up watching the streaming service as I was trying to do some phone calls and sitting back in Jimbo's office because that's where the service is, or where the phone service is. And so on the phone, and I was watching on my phone, and we got to the prayer part, and Connor and I had even talked about this. How did that sound on the stream? Because it's a if you're watching at home and you're used to we're singing and there's preaching and all of a sudden there's nobody standing up at the pulpit speaking, and but even through the stream, I thought Connor did a good job of trying to change the visual every now and then and using different cameras, but you could just hear people in the sanctuary praying, and sometimes I struggle, like if there's so much going on around me, I can get caught I can get distracted for sure.
Sure.
But you said I hear that, and it can sound like chaos.
Yeah.
Like what's going on, and God hears each one of them. I've said like as if that's the only person, which is amazing because we can't comprehend that.
Right.
That's one of the many things about God that we can't comprehend is His ability to hear us individually in the midst of hearing the so
and I think we got to remember that again, like, we didn't have a whole lot of time to really talk through prayer. I mean, we could spend weeks talking about just what prayer is, and I've wondered like how did the early church pray? Like that prayer is prescribed, right? But it's not necessarily described in that moment of how they did it. So I think there's freedom in that. I don't think we need to get caught into this. We have to pray this way. But I don't know. Like I think Sunday is a good reminder too. A lot of times when we talk about, all right, we're going to pray in church, that means one person prays, I bow my head and I listen to you pray.
Yes.
And that's wrong. Wrong's not the right word, but that's not the purpose, right? The purpose isn't for us to listen to someone else pray. The purpose is for us to join with them in prayer. Now we can do that, listen to their prayer. We're agreeing in spirit, maybe agreeing verbally, amen, nodding your head, whatever it may be. But when you're in those groups and there's that temptation, I got to listen to all these people. No, like go to the Lord and, join in prayer, pray it out loud, pray silently, whatever. But I don't know. I think sometimes things like that are good to remind us just of what the purpose of prayer is, us communicating with the Lord, and He can hear, 500 people at one time, no problem.
And the other aspect I really liked about the prayer part in particular, was just the multi-generational aspect of it taking place. Like, I know, again, I'd already stepped out before the prayer part in the second service, but Julie stepped over towards
she was in our group,
the piano side. Well, Asher turned around and ended up hopping in with the branches. Nate and Jess.
I got you.
I
think John David was right there.
I think JD, and then they had Boone and Asher. I think some of the high school boys ended up turning around. I was talking to Nate, and what a great opportunity for elementary school, middle school, high school, two parents to just pray together, and for those kids to hear Nate and Jess pray, and whatever those not they're praying over or for those kids at that particular time, but just to hear some other adults just lifting these prayers up to the Lord. I think it was just a great. We always are looking for opportunities to make sure that we are our generations are interacting, because we are a multi-generational congregation.
Thankfully so.
And we want those interactions to take place, because and Scripture talks about it.
Right.
There's such opportunity we do kids ministry and we have youth ministry, and there are places for it and there are benefits to it, but the opportunities for them to be around other adults, to hear other adults express their faith through prayer, express their faith through worship, express their faith through service, express their faith through studying Scripture. For our kids and our young kids and our teenagers to see that is a priceless opportunity. And I think that was one of the great opportunities of Sunday morning, specifically during the prayer time, and then Sunday evening.
Yep. That's what I was going to say.
Great opportunities for people to maybe be around somebody that they're not always around, and just participate and experience this. This is what devotion to one another can look like.
Right. Sunday morning, we intentionally did not do our separate kids worship time.
Right.
And the reason behind that, for those who may not know, particularly was with Lord's Supper. We want our kids to be observing the Lord's Supper, even if they're not able to partake. I actually had a parent come up to me after church Sunday and say their kid started asking them some questions after church about salvation and baptism because of the Lord's Supper.
Right.
And so mission accomplished. I certainly see us continuing that whenever we do Lord's Supper, having our kids in there to see it. But the prayer time for sure. You mentioned Sunday night. We had a great crowd Sunday night. Social hall was full, tons of good food. It was a really enjoyable time. But my favorite thing too was the multi-generational aspect. I could look across that room and see the youngest kids to our senior adults and families, and every table wasn't, a lot of times we kind of gravitate to our groups, and there was some of that, but it was just neat to see people interacting that maybe wouldn't normally interact.
Right.
And I don't know, that's the beauty of it. And that I think, as much as anything, obviously there's the spiritual element of we want to seek the Lord together, but man, just being able to rub shoulders with other people in our church that maybe you don't normally, was a really beautiful thing. And I'm thankful for it.
Yeah. It was, specifically the Sunday night, you say, hey, we're going to do this, and it's who knows. And man, it was a great crowd, from just a crowd standpoint, a great number of people that came, and some that I don't remember who I was talking to. We'll have. I was at Robert McCoy at SRTC earlier. We were just talking. They did the Lord's Supper as well this past Sunday in anticipation and kind of just in a preparation of and remembrance of as they step into some revival services coming up. And
gotcha.
So I told him we had done things a little differently. And I said, man, Robert, so we had a packed social hall for a meal. I said, and that doesn't always happen unless there's something tied to it,
right?
A men's event or a special message. But I mean, this was for the purpose of let's gather together, let's eat, let's talk about what the Lord's doing in our lives, and let's take some time to pray for the people that are around me,
right?
Whether I know them super well or not. And I loved it. And the same thing, like just you could sit at your table and you just heard all the interaction that was going on. I know that's something that's on your heart, is just, that our congregation would just enjoy the company of each other.
Right. And I think we do. I don't in any way
Right.
want this to come across as like, oh, we're so far off. We're not doing things right. We got to change everything up. I think we do. And it goes back to that question, right? Are we devoted to the church? Are we doing church?
Mm-hmm.
I would say we're not at either extreme.
Right.
But I would say I hope we're closer to the devotion side than the doing side.
Yes.
I know we have people who pray.
Mm.
I know that we have people who are serious about the word. We have people who obviously come and celebrate the Lord's Supper. And the fellowship side, I know even outside of Sunday, we've got some of our groups, some of our connect groups in church or Bible study groups do a really good job of that.
Right.
Others have room to grow in that.
Right.
But even just organically, for generations, families in our church have gotten together outside of these walls, and I want to see that. I do think that's one thing about this day and age that's harder. Back in the day, it was, hey, after church, everybody's going out to eat together, or Sunday night we're going out to eat after church or whatever. And I think society as a whole is more individualistic now than it was even 20 years ago, and everybody's busy. You got your own stuff. We got to hurry home, and even we're guilty of that sometimes. And so Sunday night was just a really good reminder of this is worth it.
Yeah.
And I shared with y'all at staff meeting yesterday, but the thing that stood out to me was no one was hurried Sunday night.
Right.
We ate, we took our time, had the testimonies and prayer, and I really expected, all right, after I told everybody, hey, share some stuff around your table and pray, 5 minutes, I'd start hearing, the chairs start moving. Yeah. But man, it's like 45 minutes.
Right.
Everybody's still there.
Yes.
And I was like, I just was so thankful for that, because it wasn't forced. It's what people wanted to do. And I think everybody that was there got a taste of, man, this is what it's supposed to be like.
Right.
So it was really cool.
It was kind of just from an all-encompassing, so I thought everything tied to Sunday. I thought it went well, it was different. And then even different compared to the bulletin, which would have been one of the one of the last things done before as we're getting ready for a service. There was just doing things differently from that standpoint. But the choir leading as always, and the music tied to it. I thought it from the standpoint of painting a picture, and we talked about this scripture is not a sermon, but it's a snapshot. It is painting the picture of what the church was doing, describing what's taking place. And I thought Sunday was a good picture of that for us and for our congregation. Very grateful for our congregation for coming, and then coming Sunday night and just being willing to do something that honestly, some of them, when you say, all right, we're going to gather together and we're going to pray. Yeah. There's for many people, like immediately, it's like just a level of discomfort just arises a little bit, because now I'm going to pray and people are going to hear me maybe, or it makes me, I'm nervous, but people just, they did it. Yeah. And as ministers, it's just really a really encouraging day that they were willing to do, knowing that it was going to be different, willing to say, I want to come and be a part of this. And,
that's right.
So it was, I thought it went well. Thought the early service went well. I got Blayton and I, we partnered up. That was our prayer group. We were sitting right behind each other, but even then, just knowing that there are the early service, it's so crazy. It's still spread out, and so people that see each other every Sunday morning and may have some interaction. Now we're able, hey, let y'all gather together and pray. Yeah. And, so just really, I'm thankful for you, one, that when the thought crossed your mind, you didn't immediately just disregard it because it's not what we do. Yeah,
we've never done it that way before.
That's an easy thing to fall into for everybody, not just in a church and ministry standpoint, but just in a life standpoint.
For sure. Well, even me personally, I'm very much a routine guy, and think our church notices that by now. I don't know. At the same time, there really was never much hesitation. I don't say that in like, oh, like I'm
right,
but I just felt that strongly that this is what we need to do. That it's just, all right, how do we make it work?
Yeah.
So I'm glad. I'm really thankful.
I was too, and I am for you, and it's a good reminder for each of us. You know, when we feel led to go in a direction that may feel different, or like go, and it's going to work out, and it's going to be what it's supposed to be, as long as we're just faithful to do what the Lord's calling us to do. So
that's right.
As we kind of look forward, how do we take these same things? Because this Sunday we're not going to have a potluck Sunday night,
right?
And we're not going to do the Lord's Supper Sunday morning, and we're probably not going to have everybody turn around and gather together in prayer, right? So how do we take these things though and really carry them forward for us?
I mean, that's the question, right? Like, what next?
Right.
You know, so much of I don't know. So many times in Acts, like that question has come to my mind. You know, like, what next after Jesus rose? Like, what next after the Spirit comes? You know, I mean, that's, if you want to just really kind of use one phrase to sum up like how the church operated, it was very much like, this is a day to day. We're trusting the Lord, and we don't know what's next, but we're just following the Spirit as He leads us. And again, we have the advantage if we have the whole Word. And I want to be very careful too. I think I shared this 2 Sundays ago. I said it quickly. I hope people caught it. That, you know, there's nothing wrong with Spirit-led planning.
That's right.
I don't want in any way to present this idea of we have to be just so wishy-washy and whatever, and we're just going to let the Spirit lead us. People can use that sometimes as an excuse for a lack of preparation.
Yes.
The Scriptures are filled with examples of worship and preaching and singing that are planned. You know, there's structure in those things. God specifically says, let there be order in worship. 1 Corinthians tells us that. And so I don't in any way want anybody to say, oh man, like First Baptist is throwing it all out and they're winging it. And that's not what we want to do.
All right.
At the same time, I also don't want to err on the side of being so structured that we don't allow the Lord the freedom to redirect, kind of like we did Sunday. You know, like we had our plan, and over the course of the couple of days leading up to worship, just we need to do this a little different, and so we changed that one part. The rest of it we kept as planned, right?
Right.
And that's, I think, what you have to do. You make your plans and you hold them loosely.
Yes.
And that's life, but it's also part of church. Specifically speaking, how do we engage in these things? You know, these are the 4 marks of verse 42. But those weren't the only things that the church did either. You know, I mean, we haven't talked about serving. We haven't talked about, I mean, let's talk about evangelism. We're going to see those other parts come up as well.
Yep.
And so I don't want to in any way limit what we do at church. We have to do those 4 things, and we've got to do them every Sunday.
Right.
This is prescriptive in the idea. It's not prescriptive in the specifics of you have to do this every time you gather.
Right. And nothing beyond.
Absolutely.
It's the extension,
right?
the full list is right there.
That's it. No, and that's not the purpose.
Yep.
Now, that said, I do think we have to be intentional to continue to do these things. The teaching of the Word, to me, is a given. We naturally emphasize that, probably above any of these others. That's something that we do well. I think we have to be intentional to make sure that doing that well doesn't exclude opportunities for these other things.
Right.
You know, will we continue to do corporate prayer time? I think so. Will we do it that way every time? Probably not, because I don't want that to become the routine, you know?
Right.
Like we did the people come down to the altar for a few weeks, and then it's like you feel like that becomes forced. Well, you know, I don't ever want us to get into a pattern where we have to do it this way for it to be the right way. So I imagine as we continue to do our services, and I'm spitballing here, right? I don't know. I've been thinking and praying, like, Lord, show me. I've asked for people to pray with us, that God would show us how to better do these things. Right now, I would say we're probably going to, let me back up. Every week, we want to emphasize prayer in our corporate worship.
Yes.
Now, what it looks like may be different each week. Sometimes it may be a pastoral prayer. Sometimes it may be small group prayer. Sometimes it may be, hey, come to the altar. I don't know. And I don't know that I want to get into this sense of, by golly, here's how we're going to do it.
Right.
You know? But I do think incorporating intentional prayer in our service, even more than we have, is an obvious next step for us. Lord's Supper, I don't know. That's the one that I think I probably have the most questions about. And I'm just being honest. Like, I don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
I mentioned 2 Sundays ago, I sometimes wonder, do we do it enough?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see us find more opportunities to incorporate the Lord's Supper into worship. Maybe it's not always on a Sunday morning. Maybe there's some other opportunities that we do, or maybe we do it a little differently on Sunday morning. I don't know.
Right.
That's something I'm still trying to work through and wrestle with. And then fellowship. Again, we're not going to have a potluck dinner every Sunday, but that is something. Just again, here's a glimpse into what we talk about as a staff. That's something for a while we've talked about, is we need to provide more opportunities for that.
Right.
And we got one coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So, here's a good opportunity to plug. We got a church picnic scheduled out at Chin Creek in a few weeks, October the 5th, I think, if my date is right. It's the first Sunday in October anyway. That afternoon, 4 to 7. And that's all it is, just a chance to fellowship together. We want to continue to provide those opportunities, and we will as we calendar that as the church. But I also want to go back to something I emphasized Sunday, and that's, we have a responsibility as shepherds to incorporate these aspects, but it can't all be Sunday.
Right.
How are our people praying? How are they digging into the Word? How are they fellowshipping outside? And the Lord's Supper is a little different. That's a body thing.
Right.
But even still, I just want to remind anybody who's listening to this podcast, don't wait on us to plan these things. You're called to do these things individually too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of where my mind's at right now, and what I foresee. We're going to still continue teaching through Acts.
Mm-hmm.
That's still going to be the primary aspect of our service most weeks. But I do want to see us continue to emphasize fellowship, prayer, and the Lord's Supper more than we have.
Yeah. And you kind of already hit this a little bit. I mean, we recognize there's just some challenges or some things to overcome. Part of it being, as we do these things, making sure that we're communicating these. It doesn't you don't wait on us to be planned.
Right.
Look for opportunities to spend time in prayer as individually, as a family, together with another family.
Right.
And we see those things take place, especially in the midst of, something has happened. And we see the gathering of people specifically.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to pray together, and we're going to pray for this family. We do see instances, and those are great, and we should take advantage of those opportunities. But again, don't even wait for that to reach out to, again, maybe it's just a family that and you and the two families just say, hey, we're going to get together and just pray for one another and encourage each other in the Lord and fellowship. Like the challenge, one of the challenges I think is making sure that we communicate and that we example that this isn't just a Sunday thing and the church planned it, so we're going to do it.
Right.
What are some other things that you think about maybe that just challenges? I think it's the word maybe even that you specifically
Mm-hmm.
kind of mentioned is that we will face, and that are part of moving forward and living a life of devotion to these things and the other things that we're going to see in Acts as we keep going through it.
Two things immediately come to mind. One is our habits and what we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
We have an expectation when we get up Sunday morning and drive to church, right?
Right.
We're going to park in the same spot. If it's available, we're going to sit in the same pew. If no one else has stole our spot, we're going to, the bulletin's got the order down. We know it. We're familiar with it. The sermon's different. The songs are different, but the structure's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're creatures of habit. And so I think for us to emphasize these things, sometimes we have to be willing to break that habit. And that comes from us individually or corporately, which is what we did Sunday. Like we intentionally said, we're scrapping the mold and we're going to do something different. But even individually, I would just say, maybe to encourage our people to pray Saturday night, Sunday morning, Lord, what do you want to do in our church tomorrow or this morning? And prepare my heart for you to move in a fresh way today.
Yeah.
I think that's a part of it. I think the other thing, in addition to just kind of we've never done it that way before barrier, which is obvious. I think maybe on the individual level and even corporately, it's just busyness.
Mm-hmm.
When I read these things, I look and I get the sense that the church was that was their life, right? It wasn't part of their life, it was their life. Now, I'm not saying you can't do anything else other than come to worship, but they were interacting every day, focusing on the Lord every day. That was their number one thing. Now they're going to their jobs, right? They're living life, but this is the foundation of it all.
Yes.
And so I would encourage our church members just to remember this has to be more than once a week, twice a week, right? This is an everyday. Am I devoting myself in these areas? And then corporately too, if we're not careful, we can be too busy. Yes. We can pack so much into a Sunday morning that we're too busy to do these things, or we're always, all right, I got to pray. All right, check that. And I got to do the word, check that. Now, fellowship. And if we're not careful, we can start, accomplishing the task rather than engaging in these activities for the right reason. So I think those would be the two biggest barriers I see. Would busyness and habit probably would be the two. There's others. But I think if we start there, just intentionally addressing those two areas, that I think we'll see some growth in applying this stuff.
Yeah. The busyness is such a thing, to the point sometimes we equate our worthiness with how busy we are. Like the busier I am, the better it is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
how are you doing? Oh, I'm busy. I'm busy.
Working, just getting after it. And we're called to be faithful to work and to do a good job.
Yep.
It is an expression of our faith to go in and be a good boss or employee and worker and But busy, I don't know if I heard somebody say this or in a random, fever fit, I thought of it. Like busyness is not always God's business, right? And so we can get, and I know I can remember, I'm pretty sure it was Andy Cashwell, and talking with him one day, something along the lines of if you end every day and you're like, I didn't have time for the Lord today. He said, and that is just a consistent thought. He said, you are saying yes to something you shouldn't say yes to, or you're doing something for longer than it needs to be done.
Yeah.
The Lord gives us each day, and if He gave us the day, and He knew the time that was going to be available to us, then in the midst of that, the opportunity to demonstrate our devotion, to live out this devoted life with some intentionality, and also in just as a midst of the rest of our day, it's there.
Yeah,
it is 100% there.
Yeah,
and we just have to take advantage of the opportunities that we have. Again, to take the intentional time, but also to live these things out as we're doing the rest of the things that we have going on that day.
Speaking of time,
Yeah.
Sorry. Obviously, you're too busy for this podcast.
I am.
You have somewhere else you got to be.
It's my mom and dad. They go off on all these vacations, and then I have to go pick my son up. I mean, what kind of grandparents is that?
Let me leave us with one thought before you have to scoot. As you were talking, just thinking about this passage, we have the same amount of time that the early church did. Individually, same number of hours in the day, and even corporately, we have the same opportunities that they did. The question is just, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
So, intentionality is the word that we come back to so often. Intentionality, being led by the Spirit.
Yeah.
And I think if we seek to do those things, we'll be in a good place.
Yeah. So this week we'll step into Acts 3. You'll be stepping into a different state for a few days.
I will.
Weather, dramatically different weather.
We're looking forward to it.
And so in your moments of being on vacation, I'll be preaching this Sunday from Acts chapter 3. So still come.
Yes.
And we will see kind of what's next after we're devoted to these things, and what are some ways that God continued to use and began using these early believers. And so that's what we're going to be stepping into a little bit. Talking about ministry. Talking a little bit about ministry this Sunday. I think that's where we're going. And but thank you as always for checking us out and watching the podcast. And we know some of you are, because some of you have even said.
I saw a few heads nod Sunday when I mentioned the podcast.
So we're grateful for you, and hope to see you around. Thanks.
See you next week.